News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Welcome to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning.
I'm Allan Gilbreth, at darkhookmedia.com.
And I'm Maximilian. And at the behest of Joe, I want to wish everyone a happy belated World Rhino Day.
Nice. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Rhinos, they deserve a day. They deserve their own week.
Technically, it's the fall equinox, but among other great holidays, Allan, you would be love this. It's Happy International Rabbit Day and National Baker Day. Finally.
He's baked rabbits.
Oh, yeah. I have.
Okay, we've got things to say about International Rhino Day in just a moment, Allan. I know I do, and I know you've got rhino stories.
It's odd how many people have a rhino story.
Yeah. In fact, I think we may share those in just a moment. So if you've got any great rhino stories, or if you're going to be baking rabbits later today, give us a call or
Bake
text.
the wabbit.
Yeah. Call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. We also invite you to watch the show on the Royal Retreat studio cams at the News Talk 98.9, the Roar Facebook page. And also, at some point today, make sure you get over to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page, like the page, and check out the posts we've made over there. Actually, I only made one post this morning, Allan, but we'll be posting more things.
It's still early.
I posted our must-have item of the week, which happens to be, I'm not supposed to say what it is, but it's a lifesaver.
You're going to tease it.
This is one tool I'm going to say splurge for this one. If you're doing this project, even if you're only going to use it once every 5 years, you want this thing in your arsenal,
you got to have
right?
it.
Okay. So definitely do that. In our great moments in building history, Allan, this is interesting. It is, let's make sure I title this correctly, the Mississippi River's levee system.
Yes.
The levee basically going up, the Mississippi River cuts the country in half. It starts from top to... It doesn't really get interesting till you get about halfway down, right, in terms of volume and everything. My sister lives in Minnesota. She sent me a picture of her walking across the Mississippi River. That's kind of, what's going on up there.
At that point, it's kind of the Mississippi Creek.
Right.
It's not...
But the levee system's very interesting, and you're up to date on the. You're well versed in the construction of it.
Oh yes,
we can all understand the ramifications if it's not constructed right, or if it fails. So we're going to discuss that. It's going to be very interesting. We've got Allan's Week in Review coming up. We've Allan. Last week we were over at the Cooper Young Festival again, which was great. I'm going to be honest. I was very distracted there. People come up to the booth. They're talking to you while you're trying to do. I had headphone issues. I was not hearing whatever. And I had brought up deck building techniques, and you got some feedback that people were like, "Well, you didn't get super specific." So we're gonna get a little more specific and unpack that, because decks are a great project. I think they're a great DIY project.
Yes, and I think there's a lot we could get into, because a deck can be very, very simple or very ornate.
Right.
And there's not a great deal of difference between the two.
No, but there's things you could mess up with. And maybe what we could also help is the order of procedure. How's that? Because sometimes if you do things in the wrong order, that's where you get yourself into trouble. I want to just make a quick reminder for everybody. Last week at the Cooper Young Festival, we also had our friends from Brussels Bonsai on the show, and they wanted to remind everybody that today they only have an open house on Saturdays twice a year.
Yes.
And today happens to be one of those. So get down to Brussels Bonsai. It's at 8125 Center Hill Road in Olive Branch. You can give them a call at 800-582-2593. That place is impressive. When you get there, you will be prepared to be amazed. And these open houses sound like they're going to be pretty interesting. So also, Max, you sank your teeth into this idea. So this all started. I happened to be at a customer's house, and have you ever been to somebody's house and they have really funny signs? Usually they're in their bathroom, or they're in the kitchen or something humorous. I would say household signs or accoutrements.
Oh, little smart aleck quips.
For example, you might be in somebody's Star Trek-themed bathroom, and it might say something like, "Those aren't tribbles, Captain," or something like that. that kind of thing. So if you
yeah.
so if you've got any funny, if you've encountered any of those, or if you've got any really good funny signs, we're only taking text messages on this, right, Max? We don't want somebody calling in because we don't want the FCC.
I don't want to have to hit the dump button, but
Literally.
Yeah. So, but that's going to be sort of an open call to action. If you've got anything fun, we'll read those on the air. I have to imagine Agent 732 is going to be getting in on that. So
I have mine, but I'm going to save it.
okay. So we've got quite a bit. We've got a lot out there. I haven't even teased everything. Of course, we have our must-have item. We've got it all. After the break, Alan, we're gonna get back to our Tool Talk Radio quick tips, where we actually give you specific advice on,
Right.
Or at least step by step maybe. And this is going to be about hanging an exterior door. Hanging an exterior door is a lot different than an interior door. There's no room for failure there.
I had to fix one a couple of weeks ago. We'll definitely dive into that.
Okay, but I want to circle back to something Max said. So it's International Rhino Day. We've all got rhino stories. I will say this. I think I've mentioned on the show before, when I was 9 years old, my twin brother and my older brother and my mom went to Italy. We had an opportunity to go there, and I was in a zoo, and I got to feed a rhino by hand. My brother and I, my mom was kicking herself because, back then we had film in the cameras.
Right.
She had just taken a picture of like an ostrich or something. She turns around after she had run out of film, and here's my brother and I feeding rhinoceroses by hand. I don't know, man.
Yeah,
but you've had close encounters with rhinos.
I have. And the first thing I'm going to say is you have no idea how big one of those things is.
Oh, yeah.
Until it walks up next to your car and it's bigger than your car. Drive-through zoo in Texas about 1,000 years ago had a white rhino, and they're called the white rhino because they have a square lip.
Yeah. They
have a wide lip, not a narrow one. And it didn't want any food that my idiot roommate was hanging out of the window with. What it had was apparently an itchy knee.
Oh, gosh.
And my whole truck began rocking back and forth as it went scratch, scratch, scratch. So
he wasn't even hostile. He just wanted to.
Oh, no, he just had an itchy spot, and I happened to be convenient. So, my 1972 350 big block Pontiac Le Mans proudly bore a scuff mark from a rhino its entire life.
There you go. You don't want to get rid of that either.
Oh, no, that was like a selling point. It's like, you know what that is? That's where a rhino rubbed on my car.
That reminds me of that thing where the deer fell on your daughter's car.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we might have to mention that. Okay, well, so if you got any good rhino stories, that's on the table today as well. So, all right, you're listening to Tool Talk Radio here at News Talk 98.9 The Roar of Memphis. We're going to take a quick break, then we're going to come back and talk about hanging an exterior door.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
I've been cooped up in the studio too long. I've forgotten what it's like to be outside working next to men who know what they're doing.
News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis.
One day I'll have that experience, Allan. It won't be this day. And we'll come back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. We also invite you to go to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page, give the page a like, check out the action over there, and share the page with everybody you know. Then scoot on over to the News Talk 98.9 The Roar Facebook page, and you can watch the show on the Royal Retreat studio cams. And they're looking good, I have to say. I love the lighting in here, everything, the new paint job looks great. So
it does.
Yeah, very, very good looking camera system. So we don't help the issue, Allan, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, well,
2 out of 3 isn't bad.
We're keeping the universe in balance.
Yeah, exactly. We have a few things out on the table if you're just tuning in. First of all, as Max indicated, yesterday was International Rhino Day. And we were swapping some rhino stories, rhino encounters that we both had in our lives. If you've got anything interesting like that, feel free to call or text on the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline. The other call to action, which we have to really tread lightly here, Max, is we're asking for you to send in humorous, we're calling these humorous household signs or accoutrements. In other words, sometimes you've gone into bathrooms or kitchens and they have funny signs in there. Bathrooms are especially good. But, Max, you said we got 2 offerings and we can't read either of them on the air, right?
I'm reluctant to read them on the air.
Yeah, we probably better not. So who do we give credit to on these?
Kevin in Oakland and Clay, the storyteller of the stars. I'll just say that Clay sent it in from a bathroom at a hardware store in Pickwick Dam.
Okay. Yeah, guys, keep it clean out there.
All right. The horrible thing is, I think I know what that sign says. So.
Oh, but we just got a text from Agent 732. I can read this on the air.
Okay, what is it?
There's a doormat that is an anagram. One says come in, and then you flip it, and it says go away.
Okay. That's
cool.
pretty good. All right, that's fun. Yeah, that's good, clean fun. So we want stuff like that. And you can also send us pictures. So and that's going to be out on the table. It's the season of Halloween and fun and goofy.
Well, I saw one not long ago that said, I love my house. I hate my housekeeping.
Yeah. Max, you had a good Star Wars themed one that you brought to our attention. What was that?
This is what a reckoning sounds like. For the bathroom, obviously.
Yeah, you keep that in your bathroom, don't you? Okay, so that's what we're looking for, folks. Okay, but we better switch gears because I can already,
Yep.
We're going to get into trouble.
Door.
Okay, so Allan, for lack of a better, we're going to call this our Tool Talk Radio quick tip. Although I don't know if it's going to be exactly quick, but what we're going to try to do from week to week is maybe be a little more specific and systematic in describing certain projects around the house. And you and I were talking last night, and hanging an exterior door is a whole different animal than hanging an interior door. And there's no one size fits all. There's no, there's if you have a home that's 70 years old versus a home that's new, there may be issues. There could be settling. There could be a lot of stuff. So let me start with what I do. And I think you and I, I'm not saying this is the be-all, end-all way to do it. This is just ways that have worked for me. And I'm sure somebody out there with a door company has their own opinions. But if you've ever been challenged by hanging an exterior door, then, we'd love to hear from you too. But, Allan, the first thing I do when I'm going to change an exterior door is I take off all of the interior wood trim. What do you think of that? Because you'd be surprised, folks, when you take it off, what it looks like inside. If you've never looked in there, it's interesting.
Well, this is when you can really, really discover, 30, 50, or 70 years of stupid.
Right.
Because your door frame, the actual frame the door is supposed to go in, should not be weight bearing.
Right. That's decorative trim.
And, there's been more than one time I've taken off the trim and you look straight up the 2x4s, and sure enough, you got a 2x4 that's going, you don't have any separation. There's not that 2x4 that goes up and it's, connected to the ceiling.
Right.
You just got the 2x4 that the door is attached to, the ceiling's attached to, and this is not good. Because that's going to put pressure and is going to, at some point, cause problems to a window or a door.
Here's another reason I do that, Allan, because so first of all, folks, and if you're not super familiar with how a house is framed or whatever, when you get to the doors, and this is true for windows as well, you have a stud, a 2x4 every 16 inches. However, when you get to the door frame, you will have two 2x4s butted together for strength, and then above the door is usually at least like a 2x8 header. Right. Sandwiched together, and that goes horizontal, and that's supposed to keep from sagging and things like that. Well, in a perfect world, those are perfectly square, and those don't settle over time. But in reality, if there's ever water issues, sometimes we've seen wood rot. This is a great time to discover if you've got any rotting 2x4s at the bottom of the door, which is something you want to fix right away too. But if you can imagine too, another way to visualize this is if you had two pieces of paper, and one is slightly, rectangular paper, one is slightly smaller than the other. And if you were to kind of tilt one or something, it gives you an indication of, wow, okay, I have four sides that are off out of whack that I got to fix. And sometimes that's what you get with a door. It's not just a matter of unscrewing the old one and screwing the new one in. It's a lot of finesse.
Well, I think the most common mistake is somebody walks over to the door they're going to replace. They whip out the tape measure, and they measure right across the middle.
Right.
And go, okay, all right, this is an opening of exactly this many inches.
Right.
The problem is you need to measure about 4 more places.
Yeah, there you go.
You need to measure, honestly, about every 25% of the height, because that's where you're going to find out you've got that tiny little half-inch warp at the top or the bottom, which is why this door that you think you need to replace is sticking.
Right. Or it's not closing, or there's a big giant gap. The first thing too is to look around and see you look around from all the edges of the door and see what sort of gaps you have. You don't want a 1/4-inch gap, but you also don't want it so tight that it's rubbing or whatever.
Right.
I don't know. What do you think? I like about a little under 1/8 of an inch gap. Because you do have to allow for, like, weather stripping.
Well, yeah, you've got weather stripping and stuff to go in there. So, 1/4 of an inch is not horrible. You don't want a big old half-inch gap. And I'll tell you a weird thing I've run into on occasion on some older houses. And that is, believe it or not, if you measure the inside distances, and it all pretty much is within tolerance.
Yeah.
Within 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, you've got it. But you're rubbing at the top.
Right.
I have discovered that probably due to, and having been a young teenage male myself once upon a time in history, you probably had one of those in the house, and they probably swang on the door.
Oh, yeah.
And
Hanging
the
from
top
the door
hinge is bent.
Yeah.
And that was a real shocker to me because of several years ago when somebody showed me this trick, but I tapped the center post out of the top hinge and lifted the door into a standing position so that it was actually good and straight and plumb.
Right. And
let me tell you, that top hinge was out of sequence with each other by 1/3 of an inch.
Oh, yeah.
Easily.
Yep.
So before we went to the drastic measure of having to go replace the whole inside casing and all that, one thing quickly to check is what condition is that top hinge in?
Well, that's a good point. Because now that you're saying this, maybe this could also apply to exterior door. Just if you've got one that's rubbing or something, there's I've seen situations where it's a simple matter of the screws they use are too short. Like you said, all the weight that you have a little inch-long screw, all of the weight is basically it's screwed into the door frame, but it's not hitting that 2x4 behind it. Maybe just some longer. You get a couple of 2-inch screws, and suddenly you're in business. It secures it.
It will pull it up tighter and may solve your problem before you have to go buy a whole new door.
So when you take off the exterior or the interior trim, and be careful with that. You don't want to tear up the walls or anything. And if you take it off carefully, you can reuse it. But you're going to notice shims, and you probably will notice shim. You'll probably see all sorts of things in there that you're like, wow, it doesn't look neat and tidy. It's like they crammed in these shim. Well, pay attention to that, and in fact, take pictures, because you may be shimming in that exact same way. You kind of have to, get it. It's a finesse job for sure.
Well, and another thing to keep in mind with that exterior is it's also always dealing with our favorite enemy, water.
Right.
And those 2x4s now they may not warp and bend in or out, but they might twist.
Sure. Yeah. They may not have been secured all
They
the
may
way,
not be in there as good as they should have been, or that nail gave up and rusted through 40 years ago.
Right. So, and then there's a lot, Alan. I got a whole checklist here. I'm thinking,
okay, well,
we're going to try to we're trying to paint a picture, but no, an exterior door is not. It's nothing to, and also it's going to take 5 times longer than you think it will.
Easily.
It's one of these jobs you don't go in there like a bull in a china shop. You go in there just it's finesse and take pictures and chronicle what you're doing. So, but we're going to keep unpacking that when we come back here on Tool Talk Radio, here at News Talk 98.9 The Roar Memphis. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
No home is complete without a proper toolbox. Here's April and Andy's. A hammer, half of a pretzel, baseball card, a scissor half, and a flashlight filled with jelly beans.
News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis.
You know, he laughs, but I've seen Allan Gilbreth turn a half of a pretzel and jelly beans into a pretty good glue. I mean,
it can be done
in a pinch,
if you're
man. It's
desperate,
got to be. Exactly. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. We also invite you to go to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page and check out the action over there. Share the page and like the page. Then, while you're on Facebook, scoot on over to the News Talk 98.9 The Roar Facebook page and watch the show on the Royal Retreat studio cams. They're looking good, man. The lighting in here is great. Mm-hmm. The studios are pretty much done. I mean, there was a lot of work that was being done around here, but it is updated. It's state of the art. It looks great, man.
It's very nice.
And Allan, we should also shine a little light on the podcast as well, because I mean, we are saved in podcast form. If you're just waking up and you're thinking, "Oh, no, I missed the first half of the show," well, you know, no fear,
no worries at all. Just pop over to tooltalkradio.com, and there are honestly years of content sitting there. So
yeah.
I don't like the sound of that.
Yep.
Oh yeah, too bad, Max. It's out there.
Well, if you missed a show a couple of years ago on a particular topic, it's there. Also, feel free to basically take us with you. Of course, we're with YouTube podcasting and Spotify or any other of your great podcast outlets.
Okay, who did you say we had a listener? You said we had a new country.
We actually had a new country this week.
Okay.
Popped up, and we had a number of listens from Malaysia.
Ah, Malaysia. Okay.
I only remember that from the movie Zoolander.
Okay.
Yep.
Whatever that. All right. I don't
I'm
remember
good
that
with
scene.
it. But welcome Malaysia.
It was because in Zoolander, he was tasked with assassinating the prime minister of Malaysia.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks.
Well, we're
Max.
not going to do that.
No, we won't do it. We just want them to listen. So
yeah.
Okay.
So for our international listeners, here's kind of a call to action. Send us a text, ask us a question, show us a project. Love to see what's going on around the world.
Yeah, that's what I want to know. What I'm interested in is what they deal with as homeowners in these different countries. So,
well, with Great Britain, we're pretty sure it's going to be water.
Right.
Canada, I'm pretty sure it's going to be cold.
And of course,
Australia, it's going to be 12-foot pythons.
And of course, the call to action for them is seeing what sort of weird signs you have hanging in your house or restroom.
Exactly.
Or
so,
that would be hilarious. That would be hilarious.
As Max indicated, we have a few things on the table today. It is, of course, yesterday was International Rhino Day, and we're leaving that open because rhinos are pretty cool animals. Yep. They're funny. They're just funny, too. I mean, even though they're destructive and they could impale you and whatever, it's good, clean fun. But if you've got any good rhino stories, feel free to let us know about those. But also, we're going to maybe keep this as an ongoing thing. If you've got any funny, we want funny and tasteful. We don't want, what did you say, Keith and who else is?
Kevin in Oakland and Clay, the storyteller to the stars.
Yeah, they're sending in stuff that we can't read on the air, and we don't want phone calls.
Or I'm reluctant to read on the air.
Yeah, we just want tasteful but funny and clever household signs or accoutrements, and you can send pictures as well to the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline, 901-683-0989. And if they're good, we will read them on the air for sure. I mean, we want to, we'll keep that out on the table. So, hey, in a minute, Al, we were talking about hanging an exterior door. We'll probably have to move along a little quicker, but and we're going to get back to that in a minute. Before we do, I want to discuss our good buddy Larry Brown with Brown Refrigeration.
Oh, yes.
Who I talked to about a week ago, and I said, Larry, it's hard getting you on the show. And he goes, I'm sorry. I work all the time. So, I mean, they are busy. They are a busy operation over there. I feel like it's a 7-day-a-week operation, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
They don't really get a day off.
No.
And so
No, they don't.
yeah, but and they're with good reason. They're in high demand because they are just when you want an HVAC company, they check all the boxes. Reliable, they've been around forever. They're not going anywhere. They deal with the latest state-of-the-art technology. They deal with train systems and the Remy Halo system, which creates it's the cleaning air technology, which basically creates cleaning particulates that come out of the system, which is very interesting in itself. And the Remy Halo system is much more affordable than you might think as well.
Yes.
But you want a company that's going to be there for you. And also, it is a relationship. When you have a HVAC company, it's important to have them visit your home maybe once or twice a year to check on your system and to make sure everything's running at peak efficiency. And they see the things we don't, the average homeowner doesn't see.
Right.
If you have a stack of boxes up in your attic right next to the system, they're going to say, okay, we need to move that. And they'll explain why and whatever. And they keep small problems from becoming big problems. And
Yes,
so
indeed.
that's what we mean by maintenance. It's usually just preventative maintenance. So, but also it's one of those things where a properly running HVAC system will literally pay for itself over the years. We've seen that.
Many times.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
And in a situation where you have an emergency, they're there, like we said, 7 days a week, which is why we can't get Larry on as often as we'd like. But, duty calls. So they also have great financing. We need to highlight that more often, Alan. They have lots of great options for you if you have and sometimes your HVAC system just needs to be repaired. So they're great people. They have an awesome business culture and they answer their phones. Get in touch with them directly at 901-362-1881 or go to their very easy to remember website, brownref.com. So, Alan, we've been talking about hanging exterior doors. Maybe we ought to kind of hit the hit the bullet points, I guess, because, I mean, you and I could spend all day talking about this. But for me, it's usually what I would say is work systematically, but work carefully in terms of don't just get that. Okay, so usually you're going to start, obviously, with the side where the hinges are going to go.
Right.
Don't just get out the drill and torque those hinges in as tight as can be, because you might actually dislodge the door frame and you might pull it too far usually it's just a matter of doing a lot of dry runs too. What do you think of that? Like, I always like to just kind of hold it in there. Oh, and we should have mentioned something at the beginning. You're going to need to get yourself a patient assistant.
Yep.
Let's face it, because a lot of what they're going to be doing is holding things in place.
You can't have the superhero sidekick that wanders off or has a short attention span.
Right.
Because they may have to just stand there for 10 or 15 minutes and just stare at you while you think and you figure. But when you need them to hand you something, they need to be there.
Right.
And I'm going to throw in a possible purchase you need to make with this door. And now, in the old days, we used to stack up the plywood or the blankets or whatever, because when you're working with the door, you want to keep that door at the proper working level, especially when you get to the hinges.
Yeah, because that thing could sag an inch or so, depending on, Well,
today, they now have the little inflatable bags.
That is cool. It pumps kind of like a blood pressure pump thing.
Exactly.
And it's much stronger than it looks. It looks like a little pillow of air.
That thing will squeeze open your car door.
Right.
But, a couple of these little bags and just pumpy, and it'll lift and hold that big old heavy door anywhere you want it, nice and level.
Right.
And that makes... I mean, we'll just start with that right there. Changes this from back-breaking to we can get this done ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So
amazing thing. Another quick thing I want to throw in is do not hurry.
Yes. Yeah.
Take your time, and like you said, a 2 or 3 dry fit-ins.
Mm-hmm.
Slip it into place, make sure, and if something is catching, don't think, I'll just straighten it out later.
Yeah.
There is no post-production to this. There is, all right, either it's slipped in easily or there's still a problem.
Right. And I would say too, we talked about when you take the door frames, when you take the trim off, you're going to see shims and things like that.
Yes.
The only part of the door you have to shim initially is the side where the hinges are going, because the other stuff can be shimmed afterward if you even have to shim it at all. You may not have to, but that is sort of the mission critical one. And if you don't shim it, like we said, you're going to screw in. You're going to put screws in, and they're going to sink too far. The other thing is these. If you ever buy hinges, you're going to notice that some of the screws are longer than the others, because each of the hinges should get a pretty. You want at least one of them that's getting that big hefty 2 or 3 inch.
A good bite down in there.
Yeah, so it'll hit the 2x4 behind it and everything. But do yourself a favor and watch a couple videos on it too. It's hard to paint a picture over the over the airwaves, but it is something, it's achievable, but it's also can be hugely frustrating and much more time consuming than you think.
Yeah, again, slow it down. You'll actually get it done a lot faster by going really slow.
Right.
Take your time and be safe.
Yeah.
Especially when you're taking the old door off the hinges.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to fall.
They're heavy too, like you said.
That's why, get the little airbag pillow things, open the door, get it underneath there, get that door supported, make sure, and if you need to clamp it or even tie it off to something.
Yeah.
You don't want this thing swinging, because when you go to grab it with that one hand, if you're not a gorilla, that thing can yank you off a ladder. It can, fall down the stairs, whatever you're working.
It can also tear up the door trim.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So it's important. And while we're talking about it, if you're replacing your door just because it rubs all the time or something, well, that's not really hinges. A good reason to rub it. It's probably just a little finesse. It's amazing how. For me, I've seen more often than not, Alan, the biggest problem is just they didn't use the right screws in the hinges. You start, and it's interesting. Have you ever done this where the door's rubbing at the top and you start using like mental geometry, and you take that one long screw and you just sort of tighten it at the very bottom, and then it's kind of cool when you fix a problem like that. People think you're a miracle worker.
But you got to take your time and look at it carefully. And you may open and close that door 25 times before you go, aha.
Right.
It's right here. And it could be, again, a rub problem could be at the other corner of the door.
Yeah. And, we also didn't even mention this, but the other times is sometimes you have a door that it doesn't shut. Or you have to kind of lift it to get it to click into place. Well, that's because the door sank and the striker plate is now either too high or too low or something like that. And sometimes that's an easy fix too. You just move the striker plate, you chisel out the new. I don't know. Doors are an interesting conundrum sometimes, but exterior doors are especially challenging. I don't know. I feel like we might revisit this.
Oh, absolutely.
But we got to move on to other things, Alan, including our must-have item of the week, and we also got to find out what you were up to this week.
Alrighty.
So, you're listening to Tool Talk Radio here at News Talk 98.9 The Roar Memphis. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
I could get a fish for a 5-cent worm.
Oh, you're paying way too much for worms, man. Who's your worm guy?
News Talk 98.9 The Roar of Memphis.
What do you pay for worms, Alan? I mean, 5 cents doesn't sound bad to me.
There are worms in my truck right now for this afternoon.
Okay.
So.
I should mention, too, that one of the holidays that was today is also Fish Amnesty Day, and Allan is clearly not abiding by the convention.
No, not today.
Oh, thanks, Alan. Okay, give him a day off, for goodness sakes. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass.
And while we're at it, how much do you pay for your worms, ladies and gentlemen?
Yeah, we'd like to know, because, 5 cents sounds reasonable to me. I don't know. Creed is just a cheapskate anyway.
I have to honestly say, I do go to the little sportsman store. I do buy worms, but it's because I do a lot of gardening.
Yeah.
And when you do a lot of container gardening, adding a worm or two actually makes a big difference.
They till it up. And
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, if you want to discuss worms with us, call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. We also invite you to continue. We're hoping somebody will send us something we can actually read on the air. We're getting replies.
Got Agent 732, but that was just a carpet.
Well, yeah, we've got this. I think it's a pretty good call to action about funny household signs or accoutrements. We're talking about those funny signs you see in a lot of people's bathrooms, or maybe even like welcome mats or something. We want something good but tasteful that we can actually read on the air. It could be in your kitchen. It could be whatever. You can send pictures as well. So send those. Don't call because we don't want to have to push the dump button.
Or what sort of fun cutlery do people have? Like, I can really see people getting fun with their cutlery.
Well, be careful because Allan he's got like a Klingon type of whatever. But send those to the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline, 901-683-0989. We also invite you to go to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page, like the page, check out the posts we've made over there. And then while you're on Facebook, scoot on over to the News Talk 98.9, the Roar Facebook page, and you can watch the show on the Royal Retreat Studio Cam. So lots of action today. And, of course, it's International Rhino Day. So if you've got any good rhino stories, that's welcome as well. So, all right, Max, it's time to get to our must-have item of the week, though. All right, now this one is interesting. This is one of your babies, Allan, and I got to say, I think I'm going to get my hands on one of these. This is not a tool I would use every day.
Don't you technically already have your hand on one of these?
Okay, thanks, Max. He just can't help himself interrupting. I'm holding it up to the camera because this is a very modular tool. I'm showing the different ways that it moves, but tell people what I'm holding up.
That is the amazing and miraculous Basin wrench.
Okay, it's really interesting looking. It looks like it's got curved jaws like a pipe wrench. It's narrow, and it's got a big long handle that and the head pivots, and it moves to a 90-degree angle or straight up. But it's hard to describe, but tell people what a Basin wrench is for, because this thing is a lifesaver. So,
okay, so, all right. Picture, if you will, you've got that vanity in the back bedroom or bathroom or whatever. In my case, it's usually small commercial rooms, especially like for apartments or hospitals or nursing homes. And there's a lot of sinks, and you can't remove the vanity. You can't get the top off.
Right.
So it's, it's not like a simple pull the sink out, flip it over, and you can change out the faucet. These things are mounted into the wall. The only way to get the faucet off is to slide up underneath there like you're about to work on the car. Except now you have about a 3-inch gap between the basin and the back wall, and all of the connections are up there. And even worse is the actual restraining nut. And the restraining nut is the one that actually holds the faucet in place. Right. And it generally is a very low rise. And in a really old faucet, it's going to be metal. And anything made in the last 40 years, it's going to be plastic.
Well, the other thing, too, it's going to be corroded. I mean, inevitably, there's water damage. It could be rusty if it's really old. And like you said,
sealed shut? Oh, yes.
You're talking about vanities and things like that. I love our farmhouse sink. They're cool. I really enjoy having one. However, that is a huge sink, and it's deep. And if you want to change the faucet, man, getting behind there, you have about 3 or 4 inches, and that thing's a good foot or so out of reach from you. So, getting a wrench in there is impossible.
So here you go. So let's just pick on the little bathroom vanity. So now you got to lay down on the floor. You've got to arc your back up over the lip getting into the vanity because you're climbing up in there. And the biggest thing I'm going to say is also, please, 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 wear some eye protection.
Oh, yeah. Things are going to fall in your eyes.
Because you're going to be looking up and you're going to be messing. Right. So what you're going to do with this Basin wrench right there is you're going to find the angle. You're going to reach up underneath there, and you're going to find the angle, because depends on how the vanity's installed. They're not always flat. And find that top nut And now you can take that wrench, reach all the way up with it, open that little head, and get it fitted around there. And now you can crank on it and pop that baby open, and you can start unscrewing it.
Right.
And now you can actually uninstall the old faucet and put in the new one.
Yeah, because this to me looks like a huge time saver. I don't, like I said, you may not use this all the time. If you use this once every 3 to 5 years, you're going to thank yourself. Because this, how much would one of these cost? They don't look that expensive.
That is the 1995 model
there
right
you
there.
Go. It feels pretty hard. It's about a foot long. It looks great. So, yeah, this one I heartily agree with.
I will say it will drastically clean up your language. Because now it is honestly a 5-minute change-out job, not the 2 hours underneath there trying to make a crescent wrench or something like that fit.
This, not to beat this into the ground, but this is one of those things, when you get on YouTube and you see somebody with that specialty wrench or something, don't just ignore and go, oh, well, I can get my pliers for that. No, there's a reason they're using this tool. So,
honestly, and I had a case this week where I had one where somebody had reused the old restraining nuts, didn't even have the little fins on it.
Right.
So, I mean, it was a wrestle even with a good Basin tool. If I didn't have that tool, I probably would have sawzalled off the faucet from above.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. So the must-have item, a Basin wrench.
Yes.
So, all right, Max, you said we got a usable text.
We finally got 2 usable texts.
Okay.
Our buddy Ditch, our program director, sent us something that said, "This is a self-cleaning kitchen. Clean up after yourself."
Okay.
Awesome.
That's good, clean fun. Okay.
Awesome.
Ditch, so, okay.
And then our buddy Angel, this is the cream of the crop so far. In her restroom, behind her sink, is a sign that says "poop deck."
Okay. I guess that's acceptable. So
a nice little pirate joke.
Okay. Yeah, we've got, I've seen some ones that are marginal. Maybe we'll keep this topic open and we'll check with Ditch what we're allowed to say because, we sure don't want the FCC coming down on us. But that's what we're talking about. Good, clean fun. But
I like that clean up after yourself.
I have to say I've seen funnier too. So, I mean, we know we know you're out there. We know you've got the really good stuff. So if you've got any goofy things in your house that kind of, hey, I think that's important. Humor is an important.
It is
an important weapon to, or not a weapon, but it's just something we need in our lives.
I've heard that humor disarms people.
There you go. So yeah. So that's what we're looking for today, and of course we've got more rhino stories. I will tell you this. If you want to go down a fun rabbit hole on YouTube, because it's yesterday was International Rhino Day. Just type in rhino versus car. I've yet to see a car that wins. Have you?
I had one that lost.
How about against like an M1 Abrams tank?
No, they won't win that battle.
Yeah,
so of course, if you want the full experience, go to that 1967 Spider-Man cartoon with the actual Rhino, the villain. That's a good one too. But anyway, I don't know, Alan. Hour 1 of Tool Talk Radio is in the can, literally. But hour 2 is coming up, and including as part of our conversation, we're going to have our great moments in building history, talking about the Mississippi River levee system. Jeez, give me some coffee.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
And welcome to Hour 2 of Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. We also invite you to go digital. Go over to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page. Check out the action over there. You can like the page and share the page. And then while you're on Facebook, scoot on over to the News Talk 98.9 The Roar Facebook page, and you can watch the show on the Royal Retreat studio cams. they're looking good. Everything, the lighting's great. The focus is good. Unfortunately, you got to look at Allan and I. But if you look beyond that, the studio looks pretty good. So it's been an interesting show, Allan. We want to make sure we remind people, if you're just tuning in, that yesterday was International Rhino Day. If you got any good rhino stories to share, if you've got thoughts about rhinos, if you've eaten a rhino like Allan has.
Your rhino rhetoric, your finest rhino rhetoric today.
Exactly, yeah. We want to hear from you at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline, 901-683-0989. Also, I would even say at the top of the list is we are wanting to showcase humorous household accoutrements or signs. If you've got some really good, funny things in your home, maybe really great bathroom signs or something that are tasteful that we could actually read on the air, we want to hear from you. We've only been able to read about 50% of the offerings today, Max. So we're definitely not taking calls on that. That's strictly a text. You can text a picture or text your comments in there. So that's out on the table. And, of course, any of your questions, any questions or comments are always welcome at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline. So, all right, Allan, I've been looking forward to this all day.
And now, great moments in building history.
A little quiet there, Max. Okay.
Had to wait for the other music to fade.
Oh, okay. So this is interesting, Al. This was one of your. This is your baby. Now we're calling this the Mississippi River's Levee system.
Yes.
And of course, it's too bad we can't play that classic Led Zeppelin song when the levee breaks. I mean, it would be the perfect musical thing, but we don't want to get sued.
Technically, it was first written by Memphis Minnie.
That's right. Give credit where credit's due. Memphis Minnie back, I think, in the 1920s after that 1927 horrible flood. I mean, that was awful. And I think that is what spurred the modern levee system, right? That they said the Mississippi River at one point in 1927, it broke through the levees. It got to be 50 miles wide at some point. I mean, think of the devastation of all that. I mean, so they needed something to at least manage it or protect against that from happening again, and that's what we're talking about today, right?
Well, yeah, there's a reason it's called the Big Muddy. There's a lot of silt in it, and because of that, it levees itself.
Oh.
So, you'll have a little bend, you have a little spot where the water slows down and the silt and everything begins to build up. Next thing you know, you got a sandbar, or it really starts piling up against one side, and that will actually make a levee, which will change the course of the river. So the Mississippi used to wander all over the place.
Sure.
And we began, as a matter of fact, there's a wonderful facility in Vicksburg, Mississippi. If you ever get a chance to go visit it, it's called Waterworks. And they actually have a scale model of the Mississippi River,
right,
all the way down with all of the elevations, and it lets them test where to put or where to remove levees so that the water can be controlled. So it's very fascinating.
Here's my observation. So let's go back in time. Let's set the Wayback Machine like you like to do, Allan. So the 1927. This was a call to action. I know there were levees before that, but this showed that we cannot let this happen again. That was a devastating flood.
Yes.
Okay, well, here's the thing. It's not just here are some of the challenge I'm seeing. Okay, well, here where we live, the Mississippi splits Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas. It's split. So, in other words, on one side of the Mississippi, you have one state. On the other side, you have another state.
Yes.
You got to get those two states to cooperate, because if you raise your side, now you're sending the water over to their side.
Yes.
Okay, that's challenge one. How many states you have to think are involved in this? I mean, at least a dozen, right?
Yes.
You got to get politicians to cooperate.
Yes.
And spend money on their side of the thing. I just see a lot of logistical challenges with it, and then and then the force of the river.
Right.
This is a huge project.
And water doesn't go away. And it's not just the Mississippi.
Right.
There are a lot of areas in the Mid-South and south of us here that have a wide variety of streams, rivers, floodplains, wetlands, and all of it is capable of handling large amounts of water. what we've discovered with this levee system is that you can't have it too tight, but you don't want it too loose.
What do you mean by that?
Well, if you tighten things up too much, now you've got it all bottled up, and it will burst at some point.
You're saying make the river too narrow.
Right. Because now you just don't have any place for the extra volume to go, and water will eventually find a way, which is kind of brings us to what is a levee.
Right.
A levee is, from its earliest and simplest days, a pile of dirt.
I mean, it seems like that's what it is,
It's
right?
just a pile of dirt, maybe some
dirt,
grass
rocks,
growing over it, and it makes the water go over there. It's just basically the idea.
And we're talking about millions of tons of earth that have to be moved. And that's no easy task, I mean, getting it. And a lot of it is in remote, the Mississippi River goes through downtown here, but in some places you're going through forests and woods. And,
right.
And it's got it. Oh, man. Yeah.
A lot of farmland and that kind of stuff. And this is where it gets kind of bizarre because basically a levee winds up being built sort of like a beaver dam.
Right.
You basically are going to have something in the middle for everything to hold on to, whether it be concrete, post, rocks, gravel. It could be any variety of substrates these days, and a lot of compacted earth over it. And there's a lot of reasons why we don't let people build on the levee. We don't let people live next to the levee because the levee is a temporary dam. It's not designed to hold the water back all the time.
Oh, now that's an interesting idea.
It's designed for the flood. And this is why often, especially from Memphis on south, you'll have what is called a levee system where levee number 1 is designed to get breached.
Right.
So the water can flow over into the area between it and levee number 2 and thus absorb a lot of the extra floodwaters.
It's redundancy, and it's preventative maintenance, you could
Yes.
call it. So, but there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of engineering that goes into something like this, and we're going to unpack it when we come back here on Tool Talk Radio.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
This is getting out of hand. Now there are 2 of them.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
Well, there's 2 of us, and then there's the secret one behind the curtain, Max, which I notice he leaves himself out of that conveniently. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. We also invite you to go to the our Facebook page, the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page, and like the page, share the page, and check out the posts we've made over there. And while you're on Facebook, scoot on over to the News Talk 98.9 The Roar Facebook page, and you can watch the show on the Royal Retreat studio cams. Hey, Allan, we got a few things on the table, and one of the calls to action is we want to hear from you about you. We only want texts. We don't want phone calls for this, though. Your funny household signs or accoutrements. If you got something really funny, maybe you've got a funny piece of art. I mean, I've seen some pretty goofy pieces of art in bathrooms, kitchens, whatever. We have a few in my house. I'm not afraid to admit. If you got something like that, send us pictures. We want to see from that. So
absolutely.
Who I guarantee has a lot of funny signs in his bathroom is our good buddy Jay Hill with Big M Roofing and Remodeling. He seems like that kind of guy, doesn't he? I would not be surprised. He is as we say, Jay is a dynamic personality. Let's just put that out there on the table. But if you need anything to do with the exterior protection of your home, from roofing, gutters, siding, and windows, but especially roofing, there's nobody better to call than our good pal Jay Hill with Big M Roofing and Remodeling. I told you, Allan, he and I are on a job together. He's going to be handling the roofing. They're really it's turning into a bigger project. Now it's not just the new addition that I'm building, it's the entire home. This house is 100 years old, so they're due. I mean, I'm sure they've had a roof replaced in between, but they're really overdue. But he shows up on the job, and suddenly the energy level goes up. And I think the reason for that is because Jay offers solutions. You know, you want people that offer solutions. One of the great things that one of the great benefits of working with Jay is, for one thing, 5 stars with the Better Business Bureau. He's a GAF Master Elite Installer. They work exclusively with GAF because those are the cutting-edge roofing systems out there today. But also, Jay is a former insurance agent, which is hugely important because you may have issues with the outside of your home, especially your roof, that the repairs or the replacement might be covered by your homeowner's insurance. And that is a huge, man, you and I have benefited from that.
Yes, indeed.
We've got new roofs thanks to Jay's expertise, and very affordable. It was great. So if you're in a situation like that, get in touch with Jay because the consultation is free. And even if you don't have a replacement situation, at least you're armed with the information you need. You also may need to finance, and Jay's got 30 lenders that he works with. So when you apply, it takes minutes to apply, and you're going to get several approvals typically, and then you choose the terms that work for you. But Jay is just an outstanding roofer. He's a lot of fun to work with, and he gets the job done. Get in touch with Jay. He always encourages you to call him directly at 901-484-5645 or go to bigmroofingandremodeling.com. Well, Allan, before the break, we've been talking about, in our Great Moments in Building History, the Mississippi River's levee system. Mm-hmm. You were telling me a few stats off the air. I mean, it's big because we have to imagine it's not just one side. Both sides have to. You don't want to build a levee on your side and flood your neighbors across the river. Right. So how long is this? I mean,
all total, and this is going to be a wide variety of levee systems through a number of states. Mm-hmm. You're looking around 3,500 miles.
Well, people may say, how is that possible? Well, because it's the river spurs off into different directions, right?
Well, and it's also not straight.
Yeah.
There's a lot of little lips and curls and coming back and forth. And starting right over here in Arkansas, going down towards Louisiana is the longest leg of it, and that's like 350 miles.
Oh, yeah. It's nuts. So.
It's so, welcome to trying to keep the river out of our business. And I kind of bring up levees now because as we get into the fall, right now the Mississippi River is down. So, the river's down, so river traffic may be a little congested here and there, but we're just a few months away from spring.
Sure.
And here comes the water back up again, and this is where those levees really kick in because levee number 1 might be 15 feet tall, and a mile from levee number 1 is levee number 2, and it's 18 feet tall, but it's designed to catch that volume of water as it moves between them.
Right.
And as the storms, keep going, there are people in our area that have had to levee around their own homes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Build little cofferdams or build sandbag walls. And the big thing about like a sandbag wall, how it works.
Right.
Because, basically it's sand, and you're like, well, water's going to run through it. Well, as soon as that sand gets wet and settles, it's pretty solid.
Yeah.
It's kind of like getting an oak barrel wet. Everything kind of swells into place.
Is it kind of like less secure concrete when it gets wet?
In a lot of ways, because you also don't stack the bags evenly. It's just like putting in a brick wall. You put down layer number 1, and then the middle of bag in layer number 2 goes right over the crack from the bags from layer number 1.
Right.
So this is, ties into a lot of cinder block walls, brick walls, retaining walls, your landscaping. Basically when you think of yourself as, how am I moving water around?
Sure.
The levee technology suddenly applies to your home and your backyard pretty well.
The thing about the levee that's fascinating to me, and believe it or not, Allan, I've thought about levees quite a bit because when I first moved to Memphis, I told you I moved here to do mission work, and I worked basically every single day. I was in Walls, Mississippi, or Holly Springs, or Tunica, and I never saw a levee before, and I never experienced the Mississippi River like I did. But you would pull up. I mean, you would drive. I would drive to work, and you're on this big hill, and all of a sudden you go down, and you're in this. I've never been someplace so flat as the Mississippi Delta, and it's just miles. And I know when you go down like Highway 61, it is as flat as a pancake there, and then you look over and you can see the side of the levee, and you're like, okay, the river is right on the other side of that. But as I recall, that is some of the most fertile farming land because it's all farms out there.
Yes.
A lot of cotton and things like that. So you don't want to disrupt that.
No.
But I was like, okay, this must have been flattened by water, right? I mean, I'm thinking whoever knows how long ago that delta was underwater, right?
Yes. Well, the river has moved and shifted, and the floodplain has grown and shrunk over the years. But a lot of what we, get to enjoy is the result of rivers flooding.
Yeah.
Because if we pick on the Nile for a moment, the Nile flooding is a huge reason why Egypt has such great crops up along the Nile.
That's where I was going with this.
Is why we have great crops all up and along the Mississippi.
Yeah, that was my point. If you properly manage the levee system or use it to your advantage, you can actually create very fertile, and you can maintain very fertile farming land. But boy, it just seems like such a delicate balance because, like I said, you raise your levee too high, the state, the farmers on the other side of the river are going to get flooded out. And
yes.
Just the level of cooperation that this would have required. And
the Corps of Engineers did an astounding job with this.
Yeah.
And, a fun rabbit hole, of course, with, any video on demand is of watching somebody build a levee or checking out waterworks in Vicksburg and watching them show you, well, if you raise this levee right over here, 30 miles downriver, you're going to create a flood.
Right.
Because
and that's something. Yeah.
And it's just astounding of how much we control a lot of the environment of the Mid-South with a pile of dirt.
Sure.
It's just basically what it fundamentally comes down to. And I bring this up and I tie it back to a lot of landscaping because I see, especially this time of year, it's gotten nice. People are really starting to work on the yards. And I really want to remind people that it's really a good time of year to get out there and see where the water's going.
Yeah, we have our own levee issues in our backyard.
Is that mulch doing the job of keeping the water off of you, or is it bringing the water to you?
Right.
And everybody's going to kind of go, well, they don't have anything to do with each other. And guys, where you put the dirt and how you move the water can make a huge difference to not only your yard, but your neighbors.
It's funny you mentioned that, too, because now that you're saying that, where you build your fence and whether you keep a gap under that fence or let it, I mean, you're creating basically a levee or a dam or something that's going to block up water. Yeah, water management is a huge deal here. I mean, we get a lot of rain.
We do.
We all deal with water. So.
Well, and then with the last 2 weeks, we've had the lack of water.
Right.
And again, how it's amazing how water either way creates management issues.
Yeah, and we did. The thing is too, just to kind of tie a knot in this, the levee system was built at a time when the automobile was more or less sort of a new invention. So they didn't have the roads and the infrastructure to get to these things. Just getting to it, it's sort of unbelievable. There's so many things that get built that we just sort of take for granted, but the challenges involved, it's nuts, man. So it's definitely worth investigating. And since we live here in the Mid-South, the more educated you are on levees, the better.
Absolutely.
Because it may be coming to a home near you if you don't play it right. All right, that was a good one. That was an enjoyable discussion. Well, Allan, I hope your week was enjoyable because we're going to take a quick break here on Tool Talk Radio. And when we come back, we're going to discuss Allan's Week in Review.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
I assure you, Lord Vader, my men are working as fast as they can.
Perhaps I can find new ways to motivate them.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
I wish you'd come here.
Yeah? Okay. I don't know.
Put you guys in your place.
Okay. Bring cookies, bring something. Why all the threats all the time? I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey,
I'm
perhaps
kind of motivated by chocolate chips and bacon. So,
Yeah.
perhaps that's what he was talking about.
Okay, we'll see. Anyway, welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. We also invite you to go to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page and like the page, share the page, and check out the posts we've made over there. And while you're on Facebook, scoot on over to the News Talk 98.9 The Roar Facebook page, and you can watch the show on the Royal Retreat studio cams. And if nothing else, what I would suggest is watch the show. Even if you're driving now, of course, don't watch it. Go on back and rewind so you can see what a basin wrench looks like, because I held it up to the camera. We also posted it on our Facebook page, but a basin wrench, boy, if you're getting ready to change your faucet or something, it is a lifesaver and a knuckle saver. So, and we want to remind you, we have a call to action today. We've been getting replies, but we can't read them all because some of them are not appropriate for radio, I guess, right, Max? But if you've got any humorous household signs or accoutrements, or especially bathroom ones, those are good. We want, I think we'll leave that invitation open for a while. You could do that next week as well. But Max, you said some of the ones we're getting aren't appropriate for radio, but you did get another one that came in, right? So.
Yes, we got a listener from Keith. Not their house technically, but they went to Elvis Presley's house recently, and there was an old sign written by Vernon Presley himself that's still preserved, and it says, "Please read and observe. No loafing in office, strictly for employees only. If you have business here, please take care of it and leave."
Sounds like he went to the Darth Vader school of motivation as well. So, all right, well, good for him. I guess he got tired of people just kind of...
Like, all right, y'all, quit hanging around in here. All right, everybody out.
You've probably seen that sign, Allan. Didn't you have to make deliveries to Graceland back in the day?
Many years.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. So we've got that. Didn't you say you had another? Did you get a question or something?
I did indeed. Let me touch this real quick. Of our buddy Scott said, speaking of doors, the sweep on my screen door came off.
Okay, that's not a bad one. That happens a lot. So, because we were talking about exterior doors today, and we've seen that. So the sweep, I know there's different types. Have you ever seen where they put the sweep on the wrong side? I wonder if that's what happened.
Yeah, well,
don't put it on the inside, but also don't put it too low or too high. It's a real delicate balance, right? Because if
let's describe what the sweep is.
Yeah,
the sweep is that little piece of plastic and or fiber at the bottom of your door, designed to keep dirt, debris, and critters out of your house.
Yeah. And it could be flexible rubber, or it could even be like a broom material, like a little fibery, like a
little sweep, literally and honestly a sweep, like a little tiny broom.
Is that different from the things that I've seen like in doorways, like where it's like a metal thing and it's hanging on the side of the door post and everything to kind of keep stuff out?
That's to keep the draft out. Yeah, that's flashing, Max.
Oh,
but
that's called flashing.
This is the bottom of the door because like you say, that's the part that it's tricky, because if you don't have, for one thing, you'll get a draft down there. But this is the storm door, so it's a little more forgiving. So,
but on your exterior door, also, when Tom hanging that earlier, it's also going to have a sweep or brush underneath it.
Yeah,
and this is actually a fairly critical part of the door. Of that, for a while, I know some contractors were just throwing them away.
Yeah,
because then you really had to hang the door perfectly, because, like you said, you can't have it too high, you can't have it too low. It's got to be just right.
Yeah.
And the sweep makes a drastic difference to just debris or bugs. It keeps the outside out and the inside in. So the real trick here is measure exactly where that sweep is supposed to go, because they make a wide variety of sizes.
Sure.
And widths. And also, is this a slip-in sweep, or was this a screw-on sweep?
Well, that's the other thing. I'm thinking, too, since we're talking about sweeps, one thing to observe, dear listeners, when you go to buy a sweep, you're going to notice that the holes there's going to be oval-shaped holes, right? And that's because you're probably going to have to adjust it here and there as you go, the height and the width and everything. So it's one of those finesse types things. I always like to start on the side by the hinges, and also you don't want to get right up next to the edge because then it'll pinch and it'll hit the door when you. It's basically it's another good one of these to do one screw at a time. Or have an assistant that can hold the side while you open it. But it sounds like a failure of screws to me is what probably happened. And, you are dealing usually with sheet metal screws or if it's a vinyl thing, and they wear you snag it one time and it can loosen the screw. And then so a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just drill a new hole into the if it's in good shape still, but the screw is stripped or the hole is, no good anymore. Just put a new hole in there. It's not the end of the world.
Well, and a little bit of caulk. Take care of the old hole.
Yeah.
And don't leave an open hole in the door anywhere. So, great question. They're a little bit of a pain to replace, but well worth getting them done.
Okay, we appreciate the question, too, because sometimes that's one of those annoyances, too. Every time you open the door, it's snagging or rubbing, or you're tired of watching things crawling in. So, okay. Well, speaking of unusual things crawling in, let's get to it, Allan.
Oh, the humanity.
What did you do this week? That sound can only mean one thing. We always like to check in with Allan and see what he's up to. Although I have to say, your last few weeks have been pretty positive. You haven't dealt with any traumatic, unusual. You haven't dealt with floods. You haven't dealt with leaks in roofs or things. This has been a construction project mostly, right?
My only downside for the week is twice this week I've managed to accidentally grab a very large red wasp nest.
Those guys are the meanest. Those are the worst.
The funny thing is it happened accidentally so fast that all we had time to do, all of us, was stare at each other and look surprised.
Did anybody get stung?
No, actually, I managed to escape unscathed, which is more than I can say for them.
Oh, gosh. But, they were scathed.
Yeah, because there was one, we were moving a scrap pile, and it's kind of like, with job's done, and I'm kind of the guy that runs around. I am literally the get off my lawn guy. I literally am. On a job site, I'm the one who's bugging everybody to death. Clean it up, clean it up, clean it up, clean it up, because I don't want to fall. I don't want to trip over somebody's junk.
Yeah.
And so we're doing this, and everybody's getting it done, and I reach over and pick up this one little piece of siding, and when I pulled it and I reached and I grabbed the whole thing, this huge wasp nest just came off in my hand. Yeah. So I'm looking at it, and there's got to be 300 wasps on this thing, and they're just looking at me like, what? So, they got thrown one direction, I went the other direction.
No stings. That's impressive.
But it happened so fast, nobody had a chance to react. So that went pretty good. My funny for the week is, and this is my own fault, of a gate on one of the properties I work with has basically been falling apart for 20 years. We've band-aided this thing 1,000 times, and it finally just collapsed.
What was wrong? Was the post loose, or was it like?
No, it's just the actual cross timbers, the actual original cross timbers that made up the gate itself. Were not pressure treated.
Oh gosh, really?
And now these things have lasted for years, but they just gave up. There's only so much integrity you can lose before it can't hold anything anymore.
It's made for okay. Boy, that triggered me because you don't do that. That's just
it's one of these things. But of course, everybody was like, "Well, we're gonna have to dig up all the posts. Now we got to take out all the gate hinges." And I'm sitting there with a tape measure, going, "Nah, give me about 10 minutes."
Okay.
And of course, we already had the lumber and everything there to replace it. And with some careful measuring and a little imagination, and a good assistant, about 2 hours later, you can hang of a new gate that swings and works perfectly on the original post and with the original gate hinges.
Oh, yeah. I always try to reuse those if possible.
And so, and of course, everybody's just whining, oh, we just need to dig it all up. And I'm like, give me a minute.
Yeah. And I don't like digging up that is a pain, man. You talk about, yeah.
So we actually got the new gate completely built, hung. It looks fantastic and worked perfectly. And I got to pour another concrete counter this week. Seems to be a theme of this time I got really smart, though.
Okay.
And I went back and I pre-caulked all of the seams all the way around so I didn't have any leakage at all.
That's worth mentioning because, man, a concrete counter can be a beautiful thing, but you don't just willy-nilly pour a concrete counter. And so that's a smart move. So the forms that you had,
just screwed the forms up around it and had everything in again. I find it very funny how when you're doing these type jobs, you wind up with themes. It's kind of like you did one this week, and client number 2 has no knowledge of what you did for client number 1.
Right.
But yet they look at you and they go, I have this weird idea. What if we did this? And you're like, I already got the forms. Give me 5 minutes. They're in the back of the truck.
Oh, yeah.
And put them back. We rolled that in hard and fast. And I will say this for crack resistant concrete.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Wonderful, easy to work with, ready to go, floated out nice. And next week we'll take the forms off after it's had a chance to cure. And give me 2 more weeks, and I'll report back on having it sanded and stained.
Yeah, because this is that outdoor libation station you're building.
It's one of them, yes.
And it's over there where it's 8 feet from a pool. You've got a lot of issues, and you save the guts of this thing, and you're resurfacing it. You're putting new. And I have to admit, a lot of the decorations and things they're very creative, and it looks like you're keeping it on budget because a concrete countertop. Technically
$60
would not be that expensive.
$60
if you do it right.
Yeah, and 3 bags of concrete because it's a big counter. But yeah, it worked out really good, and the pool station is just about ready to be converted over to a greenhouse. So we're gonna be hanging that, and we're gonna be looking at putting together kind of a plastic frame door for it.
Okay, so all in all, a pretty positive week. Very constructive.
Unless you're a wasp.
Okay. All right. Well, that's pretty good stuff, Allan. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio here at News Talk 98.9 The Roar Memphis. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
'Tis but a scratch. A scratch? Your arm's off.
News Talk 98.9 The Roar of Memphis.
Yeah, that's not reason enough to go home when you're on the job with Allan.
It wasn't that bad.
Rub some dirt on it and get back to work. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning. Here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass who just raised his hand.
We just got a text, and we have to read this sign. But first tell listeners what challenges we proposed.
Thanks. So he interrupts and then okay.
Then he throws it back to you.
Jeez. I don't know. Okay. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And we also invite you to go to the News Talk 98.9 The Roar Facebook page, and you can watch the show on the Royal Retreat studio cams. And at some point today, make sure you head on over to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page, like the page, and share the page. And I think what Max is responding to, if you're just tuning in, is we had a call to action, and we're going to keep this open for next week. So you can text us any time of the week, and we'll revisit it on the next show. It's basically we want funny signs or funny home decorations or home accoutrements that you have in your home to kind of lighten the mood, especially bathroom signs. But they have to be tasteful, and they have to be something we can read on the air. And we've only had about 50% of the ones that people have sent in that we can actually use. But, Max, you said you got another one?
From Deborah. And Thank you, Deborah. Everybody wants to change the world, but nobody wants to change the toilet paper. Be the change. Thank you.
Okay, see, that's very uplifting, but it's also a lot of passive aggressive. That's my favorite kind of stuff. Okay, well done, Deborah. That is exactly what we're looking for. So, and tasteful. Like I said, Max has a great one. He has a Star Wars themed one that we talked about earlier in the show.
It's a quote from the show Andor. This is what a reckoning sounds like.
Yeah. And right next to it is the Lysol. So anyway, okay. So Allan, I wanted to mention something that happened to me on the job this week that I think is a cautionary tale. But before we get to that, we want to, of course, give a shout out to our friends at the Royal Retreat.
No, absolutely. The Royal Retreat is an assisted living and is over at 6551 Knight Arnold Road. And ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about family dynamics for just a minute. Everybody needs a little help now and again, and this is a great place to get some answers. So if you're looking at family needs, future needs, perhaps you got a family member that needs some assistance now. Sure. They can contact Lana Candela at 901-563-2210 and go take a tour, get some answers, find out if your family is in need of assisted living products.
And the thing about assisted living is every facility is different. And this is your wheelhouse. You know about this.
I'm around them all. Yes.
Right. And so you want to be educated, and you want to and there's things that may not occur to you until you go visit and take a tour, and then but ask lots of questions.
Yeah, you got to go look, you got to go tour, you got to be an informed consumer.
And they have a great facility over there. It's just the right size. You know how they say
it's not too big, it's not too small.
Right.
Exactly.
And so you get the personal service, and they really just spoil your loved ones, which is what you want. So and Lana Candela is cool anyway. We love that whole crew over there. So
she's fantastic.
Allan, you said something that reminded me of an event that happened this week, and you said you were nagging your coworkers to clean up the job site.
Yes.
Which you shouldn't have to do, and it might not seem like that big a deal. It's like, we'll get to it. Well, I wanna back you up on that statement. I think you're 100% correct. I had a situation that was really frustrating for me because I don't want to jinx it, and I don't want to put this out in the universe, but I almost never lose things. Like my wife will say, "Where the heck did I put my phone?" She's always misplacing her phone, and then the problem is she always has it on vibrate, and so you can't do the trick of calling because you don't. All the time. I don't typically lose money. I don't lose my phone. I don't really lose things at all, which is why this was so frustrating. So I have, as you know, you've converted me over to battery-powered tools. Most of what I use these days are battery-powered. And so I have 4 batteries, because you want to have extras, and I have a battery charger, as you might expect. Well, my batteries had all run a little low on the job site. I was leaving my tools on this job site because I have a secure place to put them, and I wanted to take the battery home and charge it. And I could not. I got home, and I couldn't find that battery anywhere. Usually I would just set it in my truck, maybe on the floor of the truck.
Okay.
I searched that thing from top to bottom, and I couldn't find the battery. I think I've reconstructed what happened, and this is just a very important call to action. My back bumper has this little recessed area, right?
Oh, no.
And a lot of times if I'm loading up the truck, I lift up the tailgate, and there might be a couple things sitting on that bumper, and as I'm loading, I have a couple things sitting there. I grab them, I throw them in. And in the process of doing that, my customer had a question for me, and I walked over and answered the question. And I think what I did is I left that charger on the bumper. And so now it's out on the freeway somewhere, or who knows where. But have you ever done it? Was so irritating. I spent 2 hours looking for it. I took my truck apart. I was looking through my whole house. It's really irritating. And it's just a simple matter of being distracted.
Exactly. I have done that on more than one occasion. I've even gotten to the point now where if somebody does interrupt me during a load or unload, I will honestly start over or recheck my list again.
Yeah.
Because I do work with medical facilities and occasionally behavioral facilities, we used to call the pat down. Because if you ever worked in certain hospital environments, whatever you walked in with, you have to walk out with.
Right.
So if you had 3 pennies in your pocket, you better have 3 pennies on the way out.
Right.
If you had 2 pens, you better have 2 pens. And when you first start working in an environment like that, it is the biggest pain. After you've done it, it becomes so second nature. And it's hilarious because I still do it even on non-medical job sites. I mean, it's just part of my habit now. And it cracks my assistant up because I'm over there doing the whole, I literally look like I'm patting myself down like I'm a law officer.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, do I have my headset? Do I have my this? Do I have my Sharpie? Do I have my pen? Do I have, So, and it's so easy when you've got a simple routine and somebody will ask you a question and it throws you off.
Yeah.
And now you don't know where your box cutter is, or you don't know where the hammer went, or you don't know where the shovel got left.
Well, you're making another great case for having a tool belt because, I mean, if you got your handful of, your tape measure, your box cutter, all that right there, at least you know where everything is. But it is so. I'm thinking of putting. Those you see the little red circle with a line through it of don't. I'm thinking of putting that on my bumper to remind me just don't ever put anything on there because all it takes is one little distraction. And
those batteries are expensive.
Well, that's what killed me. I had to buy the charger and it was $50.
Yeah.
The thing is, I got that. I think I mentioned this when I first bought it. I got I bought one of those promo kits, 2 drills, a Sawzall, a flashlight, a battery, and a charger for $139. I mean, you cannot beat that.
Right.
But it's kind of like a printer. When you buy a printer, it's not the printer that costs money, it's the ink later.
Yes.
So they make their money back on that. But it's just one of those things. I would say create zones on your work site where you can't possibly lose something, I would say. There's zones that are going to be off.
Yeah. I even cheat a little bit more and go with bags per job idea.
There you go.
So I've got my little plumbing bag. I've even got my fastener bag. So all of my different screws and stuff are in one little bag so that when I do a weird job and I need 15 different kinds of attachments.
So your screws aren't loose.
Yeah. That is correct.
Yeah, don't leave your tools spread out all over the job.
And Max, just for you, I do know where my towel is.
There we go.
And the homeowners will thank you for not having errant screws.
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's end this show. Let's get out of here. We have no time. We got to get out of here anyway. The clock waits for nobody. So you've been listening to another action-packed episode of Tool Talk Radio. So on behalf of my buddy Allan Gilbreth and our pal Max over there behind the glass, I'm Joe Thorderson. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.